What's up, everybody? Yesterday I posted something regarding training with movement patterns versus training based on body parts. I'll read you the exact post. The day you stop training based on body parts and start training based on movement patterns, you'll add 20 plus pounds to your squat and hip thrust and start seeing muscle without even flexing. And I got a lot of interesting comments. But one stuck out the most, and I'm not here to be mean. I'm not here to talk bad about anybody. The person that left this comment has a great physique. They're a bodybuilder. Obviously knows what they're doing, knows how to get results. But I do think there's a lot of value in breaking down these kinds of comments, which I'm going to share. But there's value in breaking down these comments because they expose some common myths that end up keeping people stuck in the same spot. So before I get into the comment itself, I do want to set the record straight on what I'm all about, what this page is all about, what my business is all about, and how I coach. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and a strength and conditioning coach. So my page, my business, my posts are not about extremes. They're not about chasing stage physiques. They're not about getting the leanest you can get ever in order to step on a stage. It's not about maxing out for one single rep. Yes, if you want to do that, great. I can support you maxing out in one single rep, right? But that's not the type of people that I typically coach. Do I have the knowledge and foundation to do that? Yes, but that's not what I'm here for, right? So I share all that to say, when you're viewing my post and you are in the realm of more so like powerlifting or bodybuilding, you have to know that some of these things are not going to apply, because in order to get or become successful in a sport like bodybuilding or powerlifting or any sport, anything, you have to go to the extremes, right? You're not going to be a ultra marathon runner and then also be the best powerlifter. At some point, when you want to reach those goals, you have to go extreme. It just has to happen like that. That's not the people that I work with. People that I work with myself, are people who want to be fit. We want to be a bit leaner. We want to have muscle. We want to look like we trained. We want to be able to run a 5K or 10K one day and then the next day be in the gym lifting some heavy shit. Like, we want to do a little bit of everything. And with that being said, you're going to fall into the middle, right? You're going to fall into the middle of the spectrum where you are not chasing maximal strength, but you're also not chasing maximal endurance, and you're also not chasing the leanest physique. Like, you want a little bit of everything. So with that being said, you can pull principles and knowledge from all these different aspects of fitness in order to get to whatever your goal is. And that's what I do. That's what I help people do. And if you work with me and at some point you want to go on to do bodybuilding or you want to go on to do powerlifting, you will be well prepared because you will have the foundations. But that is not what this page is about, right? So now that I have all of that cleared up, let's get into the comment. So the comment said, I'm going to read bits by bits and then we're going to break down it, because I think it's really important for people to have this knowledge so that they can make educated and informed decisions on their fitness, because not everything applies to everyone. And if you are on social media a lot, if you are consuming a ton of information, you're going to see blanketed statements that obviously work for some people, but they may not work for others. But you have to know how to have discernment. You have to know how to take that information and say, hey, does it apply to me? So that's what we're going to do with this comment. So he said, I hear this quite a bit as someone who strictly does body part days. I've yet to see any truth behind it or results from switching to compound lifts. In fact, I'd argue body part days keep you more focused rather than running around the gym, doing random exercises in no particular order and calling it a push-pull day. Well, that was a lot of assumptions based on how programming works. Because if you have a good program, you're not necessarily running around doing random exercises in no particular order. Actually, when you have a good program, everything makes sense based on your goal, even if you're doing a body part split or a movement pattern split, right? So that was, I don't know where that came from, but that, if you have a good program, you're not even doing that shit, right? So my biggest rebuttal to this is every single program is built on compound lifts. You can take a bodybuilder, you can take a power lifter, you can take a marathon runner. If you look at the program they're doing in the gym when it comes to strength training, they're all built on compound lifts. Compound lifts meaning some variation of a squat, a hinge, a lunge or split stance movement, a push, a pull, carrying. All of those things are in every great program, right? Now, depending on what your focus is, you may have a little bit more isolation work or accessories depending on what you're trying to get good at, but the bulk of your program is always compound lifts. Like, that's like training and programming 101. So that didn't make any sense. So next thing is, where am I at? I'm trying to read this comment and break it down for you guys. All right, so then he said, this is the next sentence: 9 out of 10 people don't train with enough intensity to get results from compound lifts or push-pull days. And I 1,000% agree that intensity matters. There's a large amount of people who don't train with the right intensity. Yes, they're consistent in the gym. Yes, they're working out multiple days a week, but their warm-up sets look the same as their working sets. Like, their intensity is just not there, and that's why it takes them longer to see strength gains or muscle gains, even when the nutrition is dialed in and even when they are consistent. And we're not debating that whether intensity matters or not, but that does not come down to the type of split. You can be on a body part split or a movement pattern split, and if you don't have the right training intensity, it don't matter what you're doing, right? So it's not really the split that's making the difference here, right? And I actually have tons of videos on how to actually train with the right intensity, what that looks like, how to make sure you are actually dialing in your intensity so that you can see the results that you want on my YouTube channel. I'll link it in the comments at the end. But it's really not about the split at that point. It's more so when it comes down to how are you executing your sets? Are you doing it with the right effort? So intensity matters, but intensity matters. That's all we're gonna say there. But it doesn't come down to the split, because whatever the split is, if you're not training hard enough, it really doesn't matter, right? Then he said, I see the same people year after year breaking down their bodies just to look like they've never stepped foot in the gym, and it's because they have no focus and are trying to do too much. My rebuttal to this is how you look in terms of your leanness, how you look in terms of if somebody can tell if you go to the gym or not, really just comes down to nutrition, right? Because if you're going to the gym consistently and your nutrition is shit, you're not gonna look like you train, right? So that comes down to nutrition. But then you can also flip it. If you are not going to the gym, but you're just walking and just fixing your diet, you're also not going to look like you train. So you have to have a combination of both, right? And it's also a common misconception that doing compound lifts cause injury, but the reality is injuries happen for multiple reasons. There's not one thing that's going to cause an injury. Obviously, you have traumatic incidents where you get injured, car accidents, falls, things like that. But in the gym, those things are very, very unlikely to happen. And when it comes to injuries that pop up with training, they're more so happening because of poor programming and doing things that aren't ready for, that your body is not ready for. So biggest thing I can think of is that, like, I've encountered a lot, like, people with knee pain, they'll say, oh, I used to, back in high school, they're in their like 40s and 50s now, but back in high school, I used to run track, or I used to do a lot of plyometrics. I used to play basketball. So then they go into the gym and start doing more plyometric stuff, box jumps. They start doing a ton of squats, and they haven't done any of this in years, and their body is like, yo, what are you doing? And it's such a new stimulus to them. Their body is not ready for that anymore because you haven't done that since high school, and now it's 30 years later, and now you're hurt. So that comes down to under preparation and poor programming. And this can happen with any split. It's not going to just happen just because you're doing a body part split versus a movement pattern split. But you could even make the argument that doing a body part split where you're only focusing on like your biceps one day or your arms one day is too much volume. It's too much for one muscle group in one session, and it's going to increase your risk of injury as opposed to spreading it across the week like a smart person and having better recovery. So you can even make that argument of body part splits having more injury risk, right? So that's not a movement pattern issue. These are all just programming issues. These are all doing things that your body isn't prepared for. That's typically how injuries happen in the gym, not because of compound lifts. Compound lifts are actually very, very safe if you do them correctly. It's just that people typically don't know how to execute them correctly when you're lifting heavy weight, so you end up hurting yourself because you have form errors, things like that. And then also, what was I gonna say? I keep losing my train of thought. Oh, so this is also what was said. So he said 9 out of 10 people don't train with enough intensity to get results from compound lifts or push-pull days. And then also, people are in the gym year after year breaking down their bodies, right? But let's zoom out for a second. When you think about how many people actually strength train at least 2 times a week, not 5 times a week, just 2 times a week, how many people, what percentage of people do you think actually do that? You can drop that in the comments. But the answer is 30% of people. Only 30% of people are strength training 2 times a week. Only 30%. So with that being said, if you're only training 2 times a week, why would you do a body part split? And when I say body part split, that's saying, hey, on Monday I'm going to do arms. On Tuesday I'm going to do chest. On Thursday I'm going to do back. That's 3 days just to hit 3 different parts of your upper body. If you're only working out 2 days a week, why would you do a body part split? It just doesn't make sense, right? So for the average person who just wants to look better, feel better, be stronger, function at a high level, have a high quality of life, and improve their health and fitness, and still live their life without having to restrict too much, doing a body part split does not make any sense, right? Because if you do an arm day one day, a quad day the next day, and then a chest day the next day, you're going to take a whole month to hit all muscle groups at least twice. It just doesn't make sense. So for the average person, the people that I work with, they are not doing body part splits because it's not efficient. It's not going to get them to their goals. And the reality is, you don't need a ton of time in the gym to get to your goals. Yes, if you want to be a bodybuilder, a power lifter, competitively, you need to do those things. But for most people, just having a solid training program based on movement patterns is going to get you more bang for your buck than trying to do a body part split, right? So that's why I mentioned earlier in the video who I work with and what this page is about, because a lot of the things are not going to apply for powerlifting or bodybuilding when you need a more extreme approach, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Do I want to do that at this time in my life? No. Maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, maybe later on, you may see me powerlifting, or you may see me doing a bodybuilding competition, but that's not in the cards right now, and that's totally fine. Things change, people change, feelings change, and that's totally fine. But we have to know how to take these different principles from different aspects of fitness and apply it to what makes sense for most people. And body part splits don't make sense for most people, especially when only 30% of people are working out twice a week, strength training twice a week, right? So movement-based programming is always going to be a better option for most people, because you'll cover your body, your entire body, multiple times a week, even if you only get to the gym twice. And if you are like, how the hell you cover your entire body in only 2 days, I do have a workout creator guide that literally walks you through how to hit all body parts, all muscle groups in just 2 days. And if you want that, it'll be in the comments. I'll link that as well as the YouTube video. But I share all this to say, at the end of the day, it's really not about the advanced details like splitting up your quads and your hamstrings into separate days, splitting up your biceps and your shoulders into separate days. It's not about all of that. For most lifters and really most people who want to have a nice physique that shows that you train, that shows that you spend time in the gym, that shows that you've been disciplined and you are feeling strong and you're capable of doing everything you want to do in your life, you don't need to go to the extreme. You don't need all these details, right? People like me geek out about all the details, but you don't need them, right? You don't need them in order to get results. So just make sure that you're doing what makes sense for your schedule. Don't get caught up out here following advice from extreme athletes when your not an extreme athlete yourself, you don't have the lifestyle of an extreme athlete, you don't have 15 hours a day to spend in the gym, that does not apply to you. So you have to know how to have discernment, consume this information, and be like, hey, does it apply to me? What can I take away from it? What can I just throw away? And I think you'll have a lot better success in the gym, because really what matters for most people is consistency, hitting all movement patterns at least twice a week, and following a plan that matches your life. Too many times people will open their Instagram or TikTok and see the fittest person ever, the best body, and be like, oh, they train 5 days a week, 6 days a week, I have to train 5 days a week or 6 days a week. And they know damn well they can only get to the gym 2 or 3 days. Don't be that person, because you're gonna fall short, right? Programs are meant to be executed the way they are written. If a program is written for 5 days or 6 days and you're only completing 3 days or 2 days of it, you are going to be leaving 50% of results on the table. And I know somebody's gonna comment and say, something is better than nothing. We don't want to hear that. We're not just aiming for the bare minimum right now. We want to be efficient. We want to maximize our time at the gym. And if you're somebody who has the mindset of, oh, something is better than nothing all the time, your results are going to look like something, I guess. Like, it's not going to work out. So I hate when people say that. So if you're following me and you're not an elite athlete, just remember that you just need consistency, solid training, solid nutrition. You don't have to overly restrict yourself. You just need something that is sustainable for you. And if you want professional and expert guidance with your training, whether that's going through a training audit, a consultation to make sure what you're doing in the gym and outside the gym matches your goals, if you want to join my 90-day intensive coaching program, or if you want help getting back into the gym, getting back lifting weights after an injury, or if you're having aches and pains that's making you scared to continue lifting, reach out to me. I have programs for all of those things. Just shoot me a DM. We could talk about what working together can look like. So I'll link those things in the comments, the YouTube video about training with the right intensity and a workout creator guide. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.